I believe that especially in UAE, because the population is, as you know, 90% expats, that drives very much also the initiatives, even AI initiative in the country. So the government, the state itself, it's really driving this initiative, and we do have a lot of initiatives that are happening both in banking and outside banking. In banking specifically, as we also try to help the banks in this space, I do see some historical, of course, usage in the fraud space. And I believe now the banks are collaborating also with payments providers such as MasterCard, Visa, to try to actually in detecting frauds in payments. However, there is also very much interest in using artificial intelligence and machine learning in application scorecards. So really at the application level where the customer is applying, you might know that here in UAE we have many digital banks that they do not have even branches. So everything is happening through the digital journey from the bank side. And in that specific, let's say, space, some of the largest banks in the country approach already artificial intelligence application scorecard. It's not really yet applicable for everyone because, as you know, artificial intelligence requires a lot of data. But we do have banks with considerable portfolio between 1 million, 2 million customers. So over there, definitely artificial intelligence scorecards are applicable. Yes, so this question is really a good question. Nearly a year ago, because the state vision is to invest in artificial intelligence, each and every bank had an artificial intelligence budget. But as you pointed out, the people had to be trained where this budget can be used, right? So in that specific space, last year in October, we did hold a roundtable combining traditional credit risk aspects with artificial intelligence credit risk. And we do try to help banks, first of all, train their staff. And this comes from very high level, including, chief risk officer, chief credit officers, that then the information get propagated at lower level and at implementation level. As we speak, through our proposals, we do believe that we also train indirectly our stakeholders. So by speaking with multiple banks in the country, by just sharing, of course, without naming the banks themselves, but just sharing what's happening, we do a kind of indirect training, and this is very well seen in the market. I think you're right. Definitely the fraud, it's the most effective use case and feasible as well. The compliance, I believe it's more compliance when applicable to documentation artificial intelligence tools. So compliance from check your customer, but of the documents rather than entire spectrum of compliance, which is much wider. As well, I think the customer experience and the feedback that actually can come from call center, and through artificial intelligence implementation, you really can catch up that specific, repeatable words, repeatable kind of feedback, being that positive or constructive. Because we do not have negative feedback in UAE, and I think you have seen this online. We are very much focused to do it better. And whatever feedback we are receiving, either this from a vendor perspective, as a credit risk consultancy company, or as a bank, we do actually embrace the feedback, and we consider that feedback is always constructive. So going back, definitely customer experience and customer feedback. And again, last but not least, I do believe that we will be reaching a stage where also in application stage, so when the customer is applying for a personal loan, for a credit card, for whatever type of credit facility will be, we will reach the stage where we could use artificial intelligence, especially for the largest banks in the country. From regulation perspective, in UAE, there are, of course, couple of regulatory bodies, the main one being the Central Bank of UAE. And back in November 2023, the Central Bank of UAE issued a regulation that is called Model Management Standard and Guidance, MMS, MMG. And in this regulation, the banks and the financial institutions were guided in what type of, let's say, action the bank has to apply in the model life cycle. And we discussed earlier a few of the models that, where artificial intelligence could be used. So fraud models, compliance models, application scorecard models. In this regulation, the Central Bank of UAE, which is a public regulation, you can find it on the website, listed a couple of type of models that should be considered for the bank to get compliant with this regulation. And artificial intelligence models are there. So this is to say that the Central Bank of UAE is not prohibiting, it's not decreasing the importance of these models. However, on the other side, it is important that even the artificial intelligence models follow, like the other models that are not artificial intelligence, that are traditional, let's say, approaches models, are following the entire model life cycle, which means, start from development, going through the validation, trying to understand these models, why that model gives that outcome, why a certain decision has been taken based on the model, so that there is this transparency, that the model can be explained, that we don't speak about a black box, and the answer should never be, well, it's an artificial intelligence model and we don't really know what is happening in the background. And of course, from ethical perspective, each and every model, being that it's an artificial intelligence or not, has to be ethical. Even further, like you might have seen in Europe, there is, from banking perspective, a new, let's say, type of role that is called social impact officer, chief social impact officer. I believe that also in UAE we will be starting following this type of role, and what this person is doing actually in a bank is trying to help communities, trying to be social oriented in all the banking operations, being that it's a product, being that it's an flow, how the person is or the company gets the credit, but that we always keep in mind the social background. The bank should definitely first define the use cases, and when defining the use cases, we need to pay a lot of attention of not just designing the use case, but also the feasibility of the implementation. And again, we go back to data availability, data quality, tracking, the steps behind that models. And first step is really understanding with the interested stakeholders in the bank, which are these feasible use cases. Of course, as we speak, the interested stakeholders are quite aware of what artificial intelligence means, and that part of the training, I think we are quite over it here in UAE. Again, just going back to the country mindset. Once the use cases are implemented and defined, I think the next step is actually planning of the implementation. So having in mind a really straightforward project plan of when it starts, when it's finished, and keep on route. And again, another point very specific to UAE is that we usually deliver projects before deadline, meaning we don't even wait for the project end date that the project ends, but most of the projects are actually completing before they are planned to be completed.